My name is Stephen Hunt. I'm the product manager for Server and Application Monitor. So I'm on our systems management portfolio here at SolarWinds. And we've kind of all collaborated in working to bring this feature and functionality together. So as Chris mentioned, we've got different things that we can grab out of here, right? Like we can populate PerfStack. So I'm going to explain a little bit like how we get more data or how we establish the relationship. So if you notice, like Chris clicked more entities when he was going through the demonstration. So I'm going to kind of explain how some of those relationships we're pulling out of what we already exist inside of Orion today, and then show you how I can grab some more data so we can continue to troubleshoot this now apparently systems problem. Just a minute here. Switch back over to the demo. All right, so one thing that I want to show you guys for those that aren't familiar with it is, we've mentioned it before, a couple of people have mentioned it, is our AppStack interface. So for those of you, and I'm still not showing my screen. There we go. All right, so for those of you that haven't seen it, this is kind of our end-to-end view of all of our systems management tools, from Server and Application Monitor, Web Performance Monitor, Virtualization Manager, Server and Application, or I'm sorry, Storage Resource Monitor, as well as now Database Performance Analyzer. We've actually included capabilities in that. So you can kind of see from like beginning of the stack all the way down to the end of the stack, all the things that live within inside your environment. If I look at a specific application, we've gone through and established relationships between the different modules within inside of Orion. So in this example, right, I can see application down into the volumes, but maybe we don't have anything back-ending that. If I want to look a little bit further at something with regards to maybe a virtualization host, I can look at everything that is related to a virtualization host. So we actually go back into the data that we're pulling from the different modules, and we establish those relationships from application all the way down the infrastructure stack. So because we already have that data that exists in Orion today, we're leveraging those mechanisms to be able to pull specifically for the systems management stuff. So let me pull back up the PerfStack interface. And as Chris was going through this, he identified the specific server that this application was hosted on. But now that he's kind of looked at some basic systems metrics, CPU memory, but he's a network guy, so he's like, hey, toss that over to the guy that knows more about the operating system, the applications that are running. So now that he's sent me this URL, or maybe he saved this this project and he sent me the project name, I can pull back up in Orion, I can load that project, load that URL, and I can start to troubleshoot a little bit more. So he's already done the first part of finding the server that we might want to investigate. I'll again do more entities on the server, and then we will see a population of more data that actually comes out of the AppStack relationships. So I've got the server itself that it's running on. I actually even have where I'm monitoring the virtual host that it's running on. I can come in and grab virtualization specific data as well. I have an application, IIS, that's actually being monitored on this server. I can look at maybe particular web transactions, synthetic transactions that we're monitoring through Web Performance Monitor. So we're able to pull in all of these metrics again into this, so we can kind of troubleshoot from some origination point of information to correlation of the data that is there.
Are you able to see when a virtual machine maybe moved to a different host and is causing a performance issue? So
if there's been an event that happened, so if we've somehow written an event to the database, then we can show events in this as well. Let me just, so no one's calling me out. I can show if there's particular events that have been written, whether it's informational, warning, critical, et cetera. So in this scenario, right, Chris has looked at some different aspects of CPU memory. You know what? I'm going to dig into this a little bit further. Let me look and see what's going on the virtual machine itself. I can grab some statistics. Let me grab, what's a good one? Let's look at the average IOPS, see what's going on. Just, as a systems guy, I'm going to start stepping through the different things that could be causing performance issues, right? In this case, I pull up everything that I would be looking at from CPU memory, disk I/O, network throughput, and I can see very quickly, hey, there's a symptom, right? There's high CPU, but what is actually the problem that's causing that? Where is that load getting generated? Because I have the relationships here, I can actually dig into to metrics that we're monitoring from an application standpoint, and start looking at different aspects there. So for this IIS server, what all do we have running on here? So I can check to see, do we have any availability problems that happened? Everything seems to be available. We're not counting any issues there. Did we have any events that were written? No events, nothing, at least no one's configured any alerts or any events to pop up. You know what, let's look at the requests that are happening. So let's see, are a lot of people actually hitting this server? Actually, I want to look at total method request. So I actually have 2 sites that are being hosted on this web server itself. And I'm going to pull in data. So I see that there is a large amount of traffic that's actually happening on one of my sites being hosted on IIS. Now, the great thing about that is I can actually go into Orion. I can look into my applications. And I can start actually troubleshooting further down into that. So if I go to WestWeb 01, shows there's 100% CPU load on there. I can look, we'll ignore that for now. I can look and see the total connections, everything that's happening on here, and based upon baselines that I can previously set and I can monitor and alert on, I can come back and check, hey, is that high load actually something that that is out of the ordinary? It's not characteristic of what we should be experiencing. Because if I look back at Performance Analyzer, and I forgot to save my my workspace there. Pull that back up. Very easy to get right back into where I was. We want to make it easy to save and share, but we also want to make it very easy to navigate, recreate what we had done previously. So I can see that, hey, there's an issue with this, or I can see that there's high load in this scenario. With any metric that I've got that we're collecting via Orion through the rest of the systems management stack, we now have the ability to pull those into this interface. So I can take this data, I can say, hey, I've got a place that I'm pinpointing. I can drill down into the rest of Orion to look at those metric aspects, look at the baselines that I've set, and identify, hey, is this really a problem? Maybe I need to set a new alert so I can notify the web administrator or my colleague in the systems management team to say, hey, this is beyond the baseline, right? This is beyond the threshold that we need to define. So yeah, going through that, we can very quickly solve that problem. Does anyone have any questions about?
You said you could do alerts out of that. Can you, like for individual, let's say IIS applications, can you configure alerts for IIS applications that would only alert web administrators?
Yes, so through our alerting engine, we can go through in the data that we're collecting via the monitors that we're pulling. We can define thresholds for those, we can set those, and then the alert configuration, we actually say when that is triggered, send that to a particular distribution list. We have a number of different actions that come out of our alert engine to be able to send that notification. So you can set those up very specifically to go to a broad group or a specific individual if necessary.
Mm-hmm. Are you manually configuring agents on those servers for those particular applications, or is it automatically discovering what applications I should be monitoring?
So through our through Server and Application Monitor, we have a mechanism where when you add nodes into Orion for monitoring, you can actually scan those nodes to see if there are certain applications running on that, and then apply those component monitors. The mechanism and how we do the application component monitor collection process is we allow the users to define a set of component monitors that they want to for a particular application, and then we call that a template. At that point, then you can apply the template to any number of nodes or groups of nodes. That way you can continue to iterate and always be able to pull on that. Then you can override those templates and directly assign those component monitors and customize those for individual servers or groups of servers.
So yeah, you can ever create groups of IIS servers as an example and then be able to do the alerting out of that?
Exactly. Okay. Exactly. So one thing that I want to do here, and this is a bit of a segue into the next presenter, is I want to look at not only what's running in my data center, but I also want to look at potentially metrics that I'm collecting out of the public cloud. So when I pull up or what we've exposed with inside of Performance Analysis Dashboard, or PerfStack as we lovingly call it, is the ability to actually add AWS instances that we're monitoring. And so I can look at specific data that's coming out directly out of AWS, and I can pull in that information, see that with inside of PerfStack. So again, we have the ability to collect information and monitor and alert on what's going on inside of the data center, as well as now collect that information from the public cloud, specifically AWS in this instance, and add that to troubleshooting process. So we have customers that have use cases where they have a certain set of sites that they're hosting applications in their data center, but due to demand, like seasonal demand or something like that, they may actually start deploying or scale out into the cloud to meet that demand because they don't have the demand within their data center. So we're enabling that use case of being able to continue to troubleshoot that process as they've been able to scale out to the cloud. So, question?
Yeah, semi-related. So you're building a visualization view of different classes of systems, both internally and externally. That's what I'm seeing you do. Using what's in your knowledge as the systems engineer to build a correlated view, build the metrics that you think should be viewed based on something that, I forget the role that the other presenter is playing. Is it, in your system, one, the collection of metrics that you display in that? One, is that able to say that as like a profile so that you have your default profile for when you view AWS when it's triggered from alone, and also when it's triggered from, say, a high level utilization event, something like that?
So great question. The functionality that we've enabled is the ability to just pull in metrics however you see fit to troubleshoot a problem, and then save that off to either reference that again later for that particular scenario, or share that with someone in that case. What we didn't do is necessarily enable kind of like a template, if you will, of here are the common things that you might want to troubleshoot with these metrics. So you could load, per se, that template to pull in those metrics. We wanted to enable it as a kind of a customize and consume as you need to consume, and add those metrics from start.
So, and I was thinking how valuable that single feature would be, and looking at your URL string, a customer, whoever, and maybe it'd really neat if you can make a button that automatically do this. You can preset those values in that URL string.
So that actually is a great call out that you've noticed that's coming across. So absolutely, we didn't necessarily intend and enable for people to kind of leverage it in that mechanism, but I've gone through and actually built URL strings in such a manner that allowed me to do that. Now, if I wanted to create a mechanism, and so great feedback from your perspective to be able to enhance that mechanism, but I could literally build out a URL that I could insert some parameters to and grab, hey, I'm looking at these metrics for these specific types of nodes, and then input those node names or system names, if you will.
And follow-up question, thank you for going deep down. That really does kind of expand on a little hidden thing that I didn't notice until you guys are dragging it around. That's actually really neat. When you're pulling this from, say I do a curl pull on that URL string and so on, properly authenticated and all that. Is there a way, so you have the graph data, which is abstracted data over time. Is there a way that the selected raw data or values for each of those timestamps can be interpreted down, or is that graph passed as, I'm blanking on the specific type, but with that data embedded in it?
When you share that URL or you save and load the project, if you will, it actually is within whatever that configuration of the page was. So in terms of the metrics and the entities that were there, as well as the time frame that was associated with it, and the position and configuration of all that. So it is specific to the way that you kind of set it up as you're building it.
Let me clarify if
Okay.
you don't mind. And my goal would be to programmatically gather. So if I see an alert, so let's use old school terms, something traps out, right? And I have a second system that is, so this is an inspector. I'm inspecting a lot of different application stacks. I'm aggregating them together into one view.
Yep.
I have at some point I'm passing information to a decider in the algorithm, which is going to decide what I should do next, and then pass that to an actor, which is going to enact change, add another instance, scale out nodes.
Yep.
The inspector, actor, decider. If you look at Intel right down, well, I guess they're on the other side of the country, but also down the street, a lot in their open cloud that's pretty standard in using kind of a cognitive computing to methods to affect change. I guess where I was coming out of this, and I think you answered that yes, you can, but it may be complicated. That by interacting with that URL string, you can go through PerfStack analysis to aggregate performance statistics across a wide range of applications and in instances in cloud platforms. Is that a correct statement?
So yeah, while your assumption of potentially complicated is likely the truth. So while we didn't intend for the mechanism to be able to look at, pull, and reference those instances and entities and metrics like from the URL standpoint, you could leverage that as a way to call them. So it was mentioned earlier about our SDK in terms of how you can abstract data out of Orion. Essentially what we're calling here is in essence the same types of calls.
Yeah.
So the visualization of this is more or less the same type of call you would make if you wanted to abstract that data out of the
same data source pulled out into separate visualization. So I can get the tabular data out of this, right? I can get data in tabular format, CSV, the raw data that would represent that abstracted that line.
Effectively, you could.
Is that
effectively you could?
Can?
It's not enabled by it's not a mechanism that we designed as such to do that in that sense. But it could be achieved.
I would be really interested in seeing, just personally as a nerd, just one reference.
I think you're amongst
instance.
friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like stuff. It's cool. Of just one instance of this being pulled out in just a simple decider algorithm.
Okay.
Is it hot? Is it not? Do I need a scaler? Do I not? And passing it down to a cloud controller or an instance controller or something that resolved that issue. That would be very, very powerful with just all the information that you guys pull in.
So
Huge.
So that you mentioned that, and there are product managers in the room. I guarantee you there are a couple of us that will be going back into the lab with our engineering team and talking about that scenario and how we can enable that going forward.
If you guys mock something up, I would just be really interested in seeing it because that sounds really cool.
I would be happy to engage you on that.
Thank you.
Absolutely.